short and sweet presentation. I'm going to save questions for afterwards if you guys have questions about the program. But now I'd like to welcome our moderator and panelists up to the stage. Please join me in welcoming.
Oh, my bad. Oh. Right. Good evening. Lots of familiar faces in the room. Good to see everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Efosa Abanu. I am the manager of the Black Founders Network, an inclusive community for Black entrepreneurs at different stages. You can hear me, right? So I speak very low, so I'm going to try my best to project. So let me know if you can. Better?
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, my name is Efosa Obano. I'm the manager of the Black Founders Network at U of T. We're an inclusive community of Black entrepreneurs at different stages, designed to create access to capital, the right mix of resources, capacity building, and community to help Black-led companies to scale. I'll talk about BFN sort of through the conversation and the answers, but I'm going to introduce the panelists we have with us today. So first we have Janelle. So Janelle is a Next 36 alumni from 2015. She's the founder and executive director at Help Enhance app, also a DEI strategy consultant, a board member at Futurepreneur, and is actually a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient. So she's an award-winning entrepreneur, public speaker, and DEI consultant. Help Enhance is a nonprofit that helps young people build their skills and careers through volunteering, entrepreneurship, and career exploration. She has a very long bio. She's going to share more during the conversation. So Eileen is a Next 36 alumni from 2020, founder and CEO of Be Blended, also a venture capital analyst at Emerald Technology Ventures. Be Blended is an online marketplace that connects Black women with freelance hairstylists across the globe. And Emerald Technology Ventures is a globally recognized VC firm focused on building a sustainable future. They have more than $1 billion in assets under management. And prior to this, Eileen has held different positions working with the government of Canada, the TTC, Manulife, U of Waterloo alumni. Edgar is from the 2019 cohort for Next 36, founder and coach at Principle of Growth, which is, he's going to share more about, and also the entrepreneurship community manager at the Black Wealth Club. He's a marketer, a coach, and an entrepreneur who builds and scales mission-driven tech companies. Previously, he was at OnDeck, where he led growth. OnDeck is a Series B edtech startup backed by investors, including Founders Fund and Tech Global. While he was there, he helped to 7x revenue in less than 2 years as the team underwent hypergrowth. And he's doing a lot of great things with the Black Wealth Club, with him on the entrepreneurship subcommittee. So he's going to share more about that story. So I think the first question that I want to ask everybody is almost elaborating on what I started with your bios. So compared to when you were at Next 36 and now, are you still working on the same business or a different one? And how was the experience at Next 36? Like, what was the highlights and what was your biggest learning? So I'll start with
Eileen. Yeah, so I am the founder of Be Blended, which you heard is essentially an online platform that connects Black women to hairstylists worldwide. And so we're very strong in our technology and we really focus on software. So you can learn more about it later. And so I actually started Be Blended as an engineering student at Waterloo. Not for the faint of heart, y'all. It was a lot of work. And so I actually did start Next 36 with Be Blended, and I'm still working on it currently. So I started Next 36 solo founder. A lot of response from the community, but now fast forward, I have 4 employees and we're growing and we're working really hard. And so you'll see a lot of fun stuff in the future.
So yeah, I'm part of the 2015 cohort, which I only realized when you said it, how long ago. So I would say yes and no. So my year is very different from how Next 36 currently operates. So we kind of went in, you just as a solo founder, and then you got into teams with people that also got into the program. So we came up with an idea together, didn't really get off the ground. So actually near the end of the summer, I actually went to Next. I was like, you know what, this is what I actually want to do. So then I spent the rest of my summer just focused on helping hands, which now years later, I have a team of 5 full-time staff, and then anywhere between usually like 8 to 15 part-time staff. So like, it's a weird yes and no, and it's been amazing to see the growth in the past couple of years, and I honestly really enjoy seeing their growth.
And hey everyone again. When I was in the program, I was working on a different business actually. So the business was called Fit Drive. We were an app that helped personal trainers manage their clients online. So think how Shopify empowers individuals to become e-commerce entrepreneurs. We were helping personal trainers become fitness entrepreneurs. So think like business in a box, scheduling payments, client-facing app, coach-facing app, and they could send remote workouts to their clients. Worked on that for about 2 years or so, including the Next Canada program. So after Next, we ended up doing the Black Innovation Fellowship at DMZ and a few other accelerators. One was based out of McGill, their X1 accelerator. So all the accelerators. But ended up transitioning out of that company at the end of 2020 when I joined On Deck. And as Ifoza mentioned, On Deck was a wild ride. They were a community-based edtech startup based in SF, and we went from 3 million to 20 million in a year and a half, and from 30 to 300 employees in a year and a half. So experienced all the highs and lows of what startups can bring. And I really and truly was only able to do that because of my experience at Next, being able to understand what it's like to start a business and then coming in and driving impact right away. So now what I do is I'm the founder and coach at a company called Principal Growth, and we offer executive coaching and marketing consulting to founders, operators, and leaders in tech who want to scale their startups, their careers, and themselves.
Well said. So this is a question I like to start with doing panels that are tailored to entrepreneurship, because I think it's a nuanced question about whether people are born as entrepreneurs or whether it's something that you can learn. I usually get varied answers in different conversations. So that's basically the question. Do you think that people are born to be entrepreneurs, or do you think it's something that you can learn over time? And then when you reflect this to your journey as a founder, how would you say that applies? Why did you decide to become a founder? We can start with Edgar this time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys.
So
we have to
project
speak-
more?
yeah,
Got it. Okay. Cool. I'm on the spot now. That's
Yay,
fine.
great.
Question was repeated one more time.
So the first question, do you think people are born to be entrepreneurs?
Mm.
And then the second, I guess, sort of a follow-up is reflecting on your story, that question, how do you say it applies? Like, why did you decide to become an entrepreneur? What was the thought process behind it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll try to project a little bit more for the people in the back. I think that both are possible. I think you can both be naturally inclined to be an entrepreneur, but you can also learn to be an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship at its core is problem solving. So seeing problems in the world, whether that's at work, in your life, and then taking action towards building a solution towards that problem. And so as you go through life, maybe it's you have a specific pain point of something that's annoying or an experience that you've gone through that's frustrating, and then you decide to take action towards solving it. That I truly think it can be learned. And I think that by exposing yourself to other people who have solved problems like that before, or who have built businesses before, that takes that problem that you see, and then you end up seeing practical ways of building solutions to that. And through programs like Next or the DMZ and otherwise, I think those are great ways to learn, as well as just like the vast amount of content that's out there. So the second question was, in my personal experience, like why did I decide to become like a founder and entrepreneur? My case is slightly different because I've been both a founder and worked in tech, and I think that you can take that same entrepreneurial mindset that applies to like starting an actual company and execute it within the context of a company as well. But for me, was really at least Fit Drive. That was a personal pain point. I played varsity basketball for McGill, and I actually had a stress fracture in my spine when I was in high school, and was able to overcome that with the support of some amazing trainers, coaches, etc. And so when we thought about Fit Drive, it was how could we empower these coaches and trainers to serve more people, given my personal experience. So very much on the problem solving side, but I think that there are ways to, there are tons of ways for people to get into entrepreneurship.
I was gonna say it's nurturing your nature, if that makes sense. I think, and I'm gonna answer this to an essay that I always go back to that I wrote in high school about leadership, and it was on the fact that this was like post Obama and me being really excited that like there was a Black person on media, and just talking about how leadership before that point was always seen as like the loud, abrasive type, and I struggled seeing myself as a leader because I wasn't that. And I think entrepreneurship is very similar. We see ourselves as like the Bill Gates, or you think about God, why am I blanking on his name? Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes.
And like you look back at like when you look at his movie, you look at that person that's kind of like the hustler or the nerd, and people are like, oh well, that's not me, so I can't be an entrepreneur. But like entrepreneurship is different. You could be the hustler, you could be the tech person, you could be the person that has the great idea and knows how to like convince people to like join your cause. So I think you can learn the skill set of what you should be naturally good at. And that's what I encourage anyone who is on the aspiring entrepreneur side to just focus, if you want to start a business, on what you are already good at, and don't try to force yourself not to do the things you do at. Like that's also one advice I also give for even other entrepreneurs is like, if you don't know how to do something, like sometimes you just have to hit the cost and be like, I'm pay someone else, because then there's also costly mistakes to that. So I think it's like a part, like enter entrepreneurship in what you're good at, and then stick to like what you're good at or like what you want to try.
Good answers, guys. Okay, I don't want to mimic and everything they said, but I want you guys to really think about entrepreneurship here. So let's do a really quick exercise. I'm sure we have time. Can everyone just put like a hand up, just real quick? Put a hand up, just put a hand up real quick, Thank you so much. So put your hand down if you're okay with financial instability. Half of y'all are lying. Okay. Put your hand down if you're okay with pitching time and time again and getting every no but one yes. I only see a few hands. At least you're being honest. Okay, I'm seeing a few. Okay, put your hand down if you're okay with bearing the emotional burden of going up and down with the roller coaster ride of a startup. Okay, congratulations, entrepreneurs. No, but to be honest, it's pretty much you sacrificing the comfort of what this life gives you. It's a lot of hard work. I don't think you need to be a born entrepreneur. Others would argue, yeah, but if you can have grit, if you can learn to storytell, and if you're okay with the emotional, if you can just stay strong in the hard times, you can be an entrepreneur. The second part was, did I know I would be an entrepreneur? Absolutely not. No, I just wanted to solve my own problem and then recognize that no one's going to solve it for me. And then got annoyed that no one was solving the problem. And then started talking about my problem. People started listening. Then I recognized that more people were relying on me to solve their problem. And then my parents like, how are you going to make money from this problem? Yeah. And then that cycle kept happening. And I thought, okay, I have to create something from nothing. And for my case, was Be Blended with software, but now I run it, but it was never something that I thought I could do. I also stumbled upon venture capital. You heard in my slight bio that I'm working at a VC firm. I didn't know about VC until second year of university. So like, let this be known that you can stumble across things, but if you truly want to go in the route of entrepreneurship, you have to have this fire in your heart to continue even when things get really tough. So I hope I did scare half of you guys, but to be honest, like, you guys can make it if you just put the work in and really sharpen your skills.
Well said, well said. Yeah, so to summarize that, I think from your answer, you were not necessarily born an entrepreneur, but there's these skills that you identified to see. I think there's a theme here that it's a mixture of either you're solving a problem you're facing. So when you think about, for the aspiring entrepreneurs in the room, like, you almost want to like optimize for the intensity of the problem. Because I think, for example, I don't like flies. I don't know if you can build $1 billion company building something to kill flies, you know? So it's a problem I have, but is that a startup idea? Maybe not. So I think the thing about the problem you're facing, you know, think about that. Like, what do you face every day, like, that doesn't have a solution strong enough yet? And then try to think how many other people are facing this problem, right? And if sort of that intersection is like, I face it, a lot of people are facing it. Frequency is the first thing. The second thing maybe is how intense is this problem? Is it something that if a solution existed, people would pay money for or not? If you think about that and optimize for both, the personal problem angle can really work, as with Edgar, as with Eileen. I think with Janelle, there's also another piece, because maybe you're not facing a problem that's a personal problem to you, but then it's a problem for society. That's also another sort of gauging point. Like, what are the big problems in society that are not still solved now by government because government is not effective, that I can build a solution for? So just recapping your answers, I think those are some takeaways there. Now we're gonna get a bit technical. How many people know what a unicorn means in the startup world? Okay, so half of the room. So unicorn is a business that's valued over $1 billion. That's what it's technically called. Currently, the number of unicorns in Canada pales in comparison to the US, as with most other things. So there's 862 in the US. Who can take a guess how many we have in Canada? 50 is too high. Yes, it's that small. So we have 21 in Canada.
Wow.
Compared to 862 in the US. And this is from every race and every color and every gender. So when you now intersect Black with that, when there's already an ecosystem gap with Black companies, like, you can see that we have a very long way to go in terms of building Black unicorns in Canada, right?
Do we have any Black?
In Canada, I do not think so. No.
Well, someone in this room will be that
Oh,
one.
yeah, that's
That one. We have to use one.
Hopefully the next one.
The next one. I get it.
Yeah, but we have some in. So one of my best ones, Calendly.
Calendly.
Calendly, that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, Calendly. So top Nigerian. Who's Nigerian? So yeah, Calendly is an example of, but we don't have that many. So wanted to make sure we understood what that meant. So based on this data that we've seen, why do you guys think that's the case? Like, for Canada specifically, and when you intersect with, you know, the Black demographic, and then how do you think we can change this? I'll start with.
I think I could start it. I think it's a mixture of culture and policy. So I think from a culture perspective, we just don't hustle as much. Like, why I was really excited for Next 36. So I will say this, like, again, being from 2015, I actually was the cohort. I actually helped start my university's like on-campus accelerator. So like, this is, I'm just having a revelation today. So there wasn't that much of that culture. Like, I was literally trying to create it because I wanted it for myself. So it was like, oh, I guess like if I can't have it, I'm gonna create it. Like, thankfully, Next at least existed, so I could like even come here for that. And I think also it's the policy part. Like, we just don't invest as much into research and development as the US does. And then like, once you have the lead of it, you know, you have network effects and they continue to do it. And a lot of Canadians unfortunately leave, right? Like I am actually a biomedical engineer by training. And if I decided, if I actually didn't get into next, I would have gone to the US because I got a job in the US and my plan was to apply to Hopkins.
Wow.
So like if it wasn't for next, I literally would be American. Like I would be in the US right now. So I think it's unfortunate. So until we get more programs, more policy support from the government, I don't know how much it's going to change. I don't know what to go.
Sure. The question was, why don't we think we have more Black unicorns in Canada?
Yeah, like why is it how it is right now, and what could we potentially do to change that?
Yeah. Oh man. I think what first comes to mind is we're all transparent here. I think gatekeeping has been a problem. Being in VC now, I see how just like a weird conversation could throw a whole deal out the window, or lack of understanding of a culture or an industry. With Be Blended, you don't understand how many faces of confusion I've had to see, mainly because of the group that I was talking to did not understand the Black hair care problem. And so I had to educate and then tell about the problem and then tell about the solution or talk about the solution. So I think the lack of understanding is one of the reasons, because those who are holding a lot of the money, unfortunately, don't understand a lot of the solutions or problems we're trying to solve. And so because they don't understand, they don't feel comfortable. I don't understand that problem space, pass. I don't understand that market so much, pass. And so fortunately, and I've been meeting a lot of people, Black people in particular in VC, who will now open up the floodgates and have those opportunities actually come to our community. The second part to the question was, what can we do to change that? Okay, I think I answered that. But I'm so confident though that we'll have a unicorn in Canada for the Black community. It's just like, y'all, we need to really come together, okay? Truly, truly, because it's a lot of hard work and sometimes we get siloed. We like to keep to ourselves. And so things like this will allow us to build off of each other. And so that's how I think we could make a unicorn in Canada.
Well said.
Amazing. No, I have to be the one. Sure that I am. But those were both great answers. And I would think about it in two ways, similar to what they shared. One is around normalizing ambition. Janelle spoke about it already. And one of the things that actually struck me about the Next Canada program that I was in it is that when we were at selection weekend, which is when they screen the final, call it like 70 or so individuals. They fly everyone out to Toronto at the office, and then they do back-to-back like 10-minute interviews with every single candidate. So it's a really intense process. But as part of it, there's a presentation on the mission of Next Canada. And the example that they give is if you take an equivalent like bright student, so let's say computer science student at a top university. So in Canada, let's call it like U of T, McGill.
Waterloo.
But at a top Canadian university versus an equivalent student at an American university, let's say Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, et cetera. If you ask the Canadian students what they want to do when they graduate, they will say, I want to work for Google or I want to work for Microsoft. And when you ask an equivalent student at one of the American universities, they will say, I want to build the next Google, I want to build the next Microsoft. And that really is the gap that programs like Next Canada aim to solve, but the reason why we are not able to get to the next level, because when you come with that level of ambition, then you can tap into a community who's also bought into that vision, whether that's venture capitalists who want to get behind building that next unicorn, or operators, people that you're going to end up hiring that will work for you to bring that vision to life. And I definitely saw that at On Deck. And so normalizing ambition is one. The second is, and Eileen spoke to that, an ecosystem at the grassroots level. One of the things that happens in the Valley is you have this community of investors, operators, et cetera, that all want to give back and support early stage founders. To your point though, the origin of this ecosystem actually came from what's called the PayPal mafia, which is basically when PayPal, one of the original unicorns, became successful. There's a group of entrepreneurs, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, et cetera, who became wealthy. And so Silicon Valley is really based off of the wealth of those people and them investing in their friends and in their friends' companies. And it just compounded this ecosystem. And so if you think about the demographic of the PayPal mafia, well, it's all white men. And so if you're pitching a startup that is solving a problem for people looking for what's the word? Like Black hair care providers, for example, which we all know how many people spend money on that problem. And you're pitching to someone that looks like that, there's no way that they could understand the problem. And so why would they fund it if they can't understand it? And so once again, grassroots organizations, but for everyone in this room, just being able to build that ecosystem that supports the early stage founders that have the ambition to build something big is one of the ways that we can solve this problem.
That was beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I hope that when we have the first unicorn from this room, people, so make sure you network and meet each other, because but on a more serious note, I think that's literally it. Like you guys said it very well. A mixture of, I guess, Canada compared to the US, obviously there's a lot of catching up to do, policy-wise, even sort of just how the ecosystem is set up. Even outside unicorns, like the 862 US, 51 Canada divide, in other sort of metrics, there's just a big gap, generally speaking. So I think sort of that plays a big role. So it's not that we're doing it too wrong, it's just we're earlier in the cycle, just generally. But then everything that you guys said is specifically for the Black community. I think that's what's gonna position the Black community to sort of move faster. In this room, there's a good number of people that are also now in the gatekeeping position too, right? And that's important. And I think we need to, as much as we encourage more people to pursue entrepreneurship, we also need more people at the other side, right? To sort of diversify things. So the gentleman in that row after the event, a lot of investors there. Phil, I'm gonna call people out, but honestly, because we need to talk to these people, right? And then understand and sort of get the tea, for lack of a better word, because we have to build it as a community. The next question is also going to dive deeper into things from the startup perspective. So when we think about successful startups, there's a number of things that have to fall in place for you to actually sort of scale and become a unicorn, right? So from identifying the right problem we talked about earlier, to then even figuring out the market, if it's a big enough market, to then figuring out, can I get the team to build this? And then can I raise the funds to build this? And then can I execute? So there's a whole bunch of things that have to fall in place. From your experiences, when we relate this to building unicorns, what would you say is the biggest factor? And maybe you can relate that to your journey, to your startup, to what you've learned from a failed startup. But if you had to pick like one thing that you would say, like to do a unicorn, this is the thing that's most important. And why would you say that that's the case? So I think we can start with Edgar, because you're looking at me very intensely.
Yeah, great question. I would say one thing is you have to be solving a real problem. And you spoke to it earlier, frequency and intensity defines whether this is an actual problem or something that you think is a problem. And I think specifically in Next Canada, at least in my experience, a lot of founders, including ourselves, went in thinking that we were solving a problem and then realized that we weren't, and then ended up pivoting to a completely different business. And so, yeah,
that's okay.
exactly. They define that as like product market fit. So are you actually building something that people want? And typically, you know, when you have product market fit because people are beating down your door to use your solution. If you're using software, they'll use a broken version of your solution. If you're using like cobbled together stuff, they will still come to you because their problem is burning that much that they will pay you for it. And a concrete example is on deck. Once again, we were a community-based company. So we provided a remote first community of either founders, operators, and investors in tech. So you could access it through Zoom, Slack, stuff like that. And this was during the pandemic when everyone was at home. We were charging anywhere from $2,000 a year to $5,000 a year. And every single one of our cohorts was sold out like that. That's solving a problem versus when I was building my original company, we were struggling to get off the ground and to get our original user base of trainers. And so that was a really concrete example for me on understanding the difference between when you are solving a problem versus not.
You said it, and it is solving the problem. I have had the same thing where I've had someone like, you know, being out of a room, someone's like pitching their idea to me, and I'm like, what in the world? Like, for why? For who? Like, and then you're just trying to there be like, and like, let me like dip out of this conversation. And I think like kind of to the point where someone's telling you their idea and you're like, I want to learn more. I want to know more about this. Like, I experience a problem, like here, like, you know, finding a hairstylist.
We're solving it. Don't worry. Don't worry.
All the time. So I think you know, I want to say it is solving the problem, but maybe I'll do the next big one. I think I'm split between timing and team, because I also think, you know, one, having the right team members is so important, but I also think timing is so important. You know, imagine right now trying to be like, I want to open a travel agency, and you're like, that doesn't make sense. But Hopper is doing great, but they're not a travel agency. So sometimes it's people just not trying to solve a problem, even if they are, but not doing it in the right timing and the way that they're doing it, I think is really important. And I would even say for Helping Hands, someone actually asked me, so just a quick context, I realized I run a nonprofit now. Start off initially wanting a for-profit. So originally started making an app. By the time, two problems. Not everyone had access to technology, especially younger youth. So I was trying to go through the school boards, and I actively had like old geriatric board, like school board trustees tell me youth don't want tech. Like the school boards just weren't ready for my product yet. So I transitioned over to nonprofit, and now I have the problem where we don't spend money on marketing at all. It's all pure word of mouth. Youth just tell, if anyone's from Ontario, the 40 hours you have to do of volunteering, we help you find it. I don't have to ask youth to message us, they message us. So I think it is a mixture of like having the right, having the right, solving a problem, having the right time, and having the right team. And all.
Yeah, wow.
The third.
We all thought of different things. I'm happy because now we can give you guys more knowledge. So I would say storytelling. So if you can't talk about what you're building, you can't talk about the excitement behind your mission, if you can't talk about why you need funding, you won't really go anywhere. I would say for me with Be Blended, well, let me divert and come back. Sometimes we feel like we have this perfect idea and we don't want anybody to steal it. So I'm not going to talk about it. Keep it to myself. I'm going to build it and then launch to the world once it's ready. I could have done that, but I don't think that's the best approach. Talking to people about what you're building not only gives you kind of sort of free public relations PR, but you actually find certain people in the crowd who are curious about what you're working on. And then they kind of hound you down, and now you have a team member. You're talking about your startup, and someone hears you in the crowd and says, actually my friend's sister deals with this and she's in product design. Can she join? That's actually how our team was built. I didn't reach out to anybody. Everyone came to me. I'm not going to say that those who have reached out to are still at the company. Things have happened, and this is the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. I'm trying to get you guys to really understand how hard this is. But storytelling is what gets you in front of investors, and you can talk confidently about what you're building. You can explain in depth of how important it is of your mission. And people actually care about the heart of the story, who you are. The numbers, this is another thing, know your numbers, but the way you can talk and explain is, I think, how you would really get to a position where you can be a unicorn. I'm working on it. I know it'd be blended right now. You're talking about solving a problem. We have this like MVP, I like to call it high functioning MVP. If you go to beblended.ca right now, it's what it is. Shameless plug. However, we've been keeping our heads down for about a year now, building out this like really robust software. And through storytelling and talking to people, people are still using this finicky sort of platform. And I think it's really important that we continue to just talk about what we're doing and sharpen your presentation skills. Even if you get nervous, just keep going and you'll be okay. And so you'll do the recap. I was about to do the recap. Okay, yeah, no, but solving a problem that people actually care about, having the right team and the right timing, and then also talking about it and having the storytelling skills to put all of this together, I think you'll be set up quite well. Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I stole your job.
Be conversant of time we could talk for 2 days and keep going, but I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. So how much time do we have left?
We feel free to ask a couple more questions and then open up to the audience.
Okay, so I think we'll maybe do the specific ones to your stories and then open up to the audience. So I'm gonna start with Janelle. So through your work in the education sector, you've helped hundreds of youth gain hands-on skills and explore their careers. Like we said, this work was recognized by Forbes, where you were named as the only Canadian on your global top 30 and the 30 list for education. So what roles would you say that grassroots organizations play in building an ecosystem? And for those in this room that are not in the sort of venture space, or the investors that are like the grassroots sort of wearing that hat, like what advice or I guess comments would you give to them that's tying to like building Black unicorns?
Yeah, I think one thing is that everything, a lot of times now doing this work, I work a lot on policy, and a lot of times, I think when we like say affordable housing, they're like, oh, let's start at this point, but whatever point that the policy is, usually needs something earlier. Same thing with education, same thing with entrepreneurship. With education right now, when it comes to career building, we're so focused, really starting from the high school and university part, but a lot of times you need even younger than that. I actually realized a story I never got to tell you, is that even sometimes for fun, will help other stuff. But I remember a school asked me to actually come in. Principal was really good. She recognized that Black boys were struggling with math. She asked me to come and do a STEM program for the school. I actually ran it for both the boys and girls in the school. It was for ended up being then all of a sudden for multiple schools. But I would never forget, one of the girls, as I was walking out, asked me what was the point of like coding and making apps, and I gave her an example that she can make a Black hairstyling app, and the smile and on her face. And I think why I'm bringing this up is that in order to make more unicorns, we need to have the ambition, and more youth need to have the confidence and the belief that they can do it at a way younger age. By the time you're in high school, if anyone knows about streaming, by the time you're already in grade 9, you already are streamed into whether you're going to go to college or go to university. People already have a limitation on what they think they can achieve. So everything has to be younger. So if you want to help entrepreneurs, we got to start, all the way down to elementary school. Not saying everyone in the room is going to all of a sudden start helping elementary kids, but if you want to start helping the Black unicorns, you can't be like, I'm only going to look at people that are already making $1 million plus. You got to start even younger, or start like even earlier. So what I would say is, whatever you're doing, one stage earlier of that is the right place to be in order to truly help. And because we call ourselves preventative unemployment, and we're helping high school and elementary now. And I think in order to help the next Black unicorns, we need to be starting helping entrepreneurs as they're aspiring, and not just once they're already successful.
Yeah, that resonates so well. I learned that the hard way too, like from building Black Founders Network, when we did all the consultations. I thought capital was going to be the biggest barrier, which it is a very big barrier. but we found very similar to what you said that, which is why we called it a network at the end of the day. The community layer was more sort of prevalent. And in addition to that, what you said, we have to start at the top of the funnel for entrepreneurship, because when you think about the most successful entrepreneurs, even the story you gave us right now of PayPal Mafia, you have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, blah, blah, blah. When do you actually get to a Black person in any list, right? Now we're seeing like a few unicorns. And I remember growing up, I always wanted to be a founder. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Didn't want to do school. But then I couldn't, so all my mentors or all my role models were Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, all these people. And even there's an added layer, because I was an immigrant, so I came from Nigeria, spent all my life there. I couldn't see myself in those people, right? So you have to have an added layer of self-belief to even break through that mental barrier. And thank God that I, eventually did. But I think that, to your point, stifles a lot of people, because talent is evenly distributed, right? But sort of that opportunity, that self-belief, that's not. So I really agree with that. Sorry for the ramble, but even in the entrepreneurship space, I think it's great to have people funded and getting to the unicorn level, but I think a lot of us need to do better in going to the earlier stages and positioning this as a pathway for people to see themselves from our community. So that's very well said. Eileen, you've built Be Blended into a startup that serves Black women globally, and you've also reviewed hundreds of deals now as a VC analyst. Your efforts during Next 36 also actually led to the creation of the Harvard Business School case study with Wes Hall on the barriers the Black community faces in Canada. So how can founders know when their business is VC fundable? It's very unlikely that you're going to build a unicorn without it being VC fundable. And how should Black founders tell their story? You already talked about this, to be fair, but I guess how should they tell their story in a way that resonates with investors?
Okay. So the first part was, how can people understand that this is a fundable,
VC fundable
startup? So it has to be scalable. So if you're looking at your idea and you can't expand it beyond maybe your region or your community, then that's a little tricky to be VC fundable. I know.
Can you define scalable?
Scalable,
Can you make
yeah.
that more simple?
Of course, anything that can grow a lot. I'm gonna say exponentially. Let's just say a lot. So anything that you can kind of, you start off and you can pick it up and put it in another place, then you can pick it up and put it in another place, and it can still have, to some extent, an impact in those places that you move it to. And so something that's really big, obviously, right now is software. Software is a really cool direction to take if you want to scale something, because you have less asset intensive things. So you don't have like a place, like a warehouse, you don't have cars, it's software that you can scale and pick up and bring to different places. Other things is networking. I would say networking is a really, really good way to you just need to talk to people. Unicorns aren't real, but they're not built just from sitting in your place and not really talking to people. And so I would say building something that's scalable and that that can spread and move quickly, and then also talking and networking with the right people, even if you're not even feeling like it. There's times I'm just like, man, I do not want to go to this event. But at the end of it, I met this one key person that was super interesting, that connected me to this other person that was really cool. And now they're on my LinkedIn. Shameless plug again, please add me on LinkedIn. Please, let's network with each other. But those would be the two things, something that's scalable, and then also being very keen on networking and talking to people, I think would help. The last part, sorry.
You sort of touched on that, storytelling.
Storytelling, okay, yeah.
You already touched. That's great. And I think on the networking piece, I want to really emphasize that, because, and shameless plug for the Black Wealth Club. If anyone, I guess the application already closed. So, but for the next cohort, if you're here and you really want to have a solid network of people, check that out and apply. you don't have to be a founder. Like for Black Founders Network, you can be an operator, you can be from any space as long as you self-identify as Black and you want to learn how to create wealth. But I say that to sort of emphasize from my story as well. I think when people talk about networking, there's a lot of emphasis on sort of you're trying to meet this person above you that's been there, done that, that's this, you know, boss ass person. But then not enough emphasis goes on like networking across. And one thing I'm learning as we're getting older is that people become less accessible just with time. So you're gonna meet the people at their lowest moments, quote unquote, like now, like when we're all super vulnerable, like we're not important, we're just, you know, not yet. Well, that just means we have a long way to go. But like when everyone's just free and, you know, open and disarmed, like that's the best time to build the strongest types of relationships, because now the people that are helping me get access to like some rooms that I can't were people that I met, you know, when I was in university. And I think intentionally building out your sort of, I guess, is this vertical or horizontal? The one that's this way. Horizontal. Effectively building out that network now is going to be so critical. So be intentional about your space. Like if you're in VC, if you're in healthcare, if you're in education, build genuine relationships with people that are passionate about those things now. And it's going to compound. Because then, you know, 10 years down the line, they're CEO of something or they're CTO of something or in government. And it's too late then to get a genuine relationship with anybody, because as you become more busy, you don't just have as much time to make new friends or answer DMs or whatever. So I think that's been a big learning for me. And it's not too late yet for us because we're here. So we clearly wanted to meet people, but really like thinking of that beyond just, you know, going out for things and not focusing too much and trying to connect with Bill Gates or West Hall but like, you know, people that are here with us, I think is an important piece.
Do you mind if I just add a quick example to that? I also want to say, like, really clear, the good part about your peers is that they actually know what's going on at your level. I don't know if you've ever done this. I'm just going to give the example. Your parents, sometimes they give, I'm pretty sure everyone has gone on like useless advice from their parents because they're like, that worked back in your day, not in our day. And that is one of the problems sometimes with when I talk to people who are way higher up, they're giving me advice and I'm like, but that's not how the ecosystem is right now. So people who are at the same level as you understand. Right when I was starting, someone who had her nonprofit like about a year or a year and a half before me gave me advice on how to hire part-time. And to this day, that is like my success and a big reason why Helping Hands exists is because we get to like talk the talk by hiring young people. And she told me how to do that. And I also wanted to say, it was a Kai. I have a bunch of like, as soon as you said your pitch, I was like in my head, like a list of people I want to introduce you to. So like, let's make sure we connect. And like, this is the useful also about networking. Like you say it, you never know who in the room knows something. And I will say this, and especially, I don't have to say this to a group of Black people, because a lot of times people assume that I am like a secretary, that I know nothing, that I'm not useful in a room. And I think we all have experienced that. So like, let's also not do that to each other. We never know who around us and like who they're connected to.
Hey, Edgar. So you spent the last 2 years working at OnDeck, a San Francisco-based community startup that has helped founders start and scale over 1,000 tech companies, now worth over $9 billion, where you saw and helped the team scale from 30 to 300 employees in less than a year. What takeaways can you share from that experience? I think specifically as it comes to founders in the room that are at that stage where they're building and trying to build something scalable, VC fundable, etc. What were the biggest learnings you got from that you can sort of share with us?
There were a ton of learnings, so I'm gonna try to condense them down. That's nice to set the mood. I think we touched on a lot of the points already throughout the discussion. The first one is just be bold. Don't be afraid to have a vision that can touch people around the world, because when you have something like that, that is how other people can also get behind you and also become invested in that vision. At OnDeck, our mission was literally to build Silicon Valley for the internet. Let's just think about that for a second. Like, That is so huge if it were to take place, because that is literally providing an ecosystem of support for every person who is ambitious, who wants to build something globally. And if that were true, then think about the impact on the world. We wouldn't just be talking about building Black unicorns in Canada, it would be building unicorns across the globe, if that were true. And so if you set that as your vision, you can attract investors who are excited about putting capital behind that. You can attract top talent who wants to build that alongside you. And it's interesting, we actually hired at least 4 Next Canada alumni at On Deck, because Next Canada is some great people. But they all came in, they were founders who were passionate about their original businesses, and then they were more bought into that larger vision and saw the impact of what they could do. And so the first one is just don't be afraid to be bold. Second one, both of you touched on it as well, just the impact of leaning on your community and your network at the earliest stages. On Deck was the community company. And so people would come into On Deck fellowships and they would find customers through the network. They would find investors through the network. And all it was bringing together a group of people that were bought into the idea of spirit of service, so of providing as much value as they were taking out. And then for founders that were joining those programs to ask, like, I need support with fundraising. I need support with go-to-market. And when you're very clear on what you're looking for, well, then someone can think of someone in their network that they can connect you to so that you can actually solve the problem. And so that storytelling piece that you spoke about is really critical, being able to say, this is what I'm working on, this is the help that I need, and this is where I'm going if I'm able to access that. Then the final one, we talked about it briefly, knowing your numbers for early stage founders. I think what's interesting about the entire idea of building Black unicorns and the venture capital ecosystem as a whole is that it's all built on investing in what's called the present value of future cash flows. So we are saying that, okay, if we give you money now, then we think this business will generate $1 billion in revenue or $100 million in revenue over the life cycle of that business. What's happening right now in tech, as I'm sure all of you have seen with all of the layoffs, is that companies projected that they were going to make a ton of money and they have been unable to deliver on that. That is why we're seeing this, because at the end of the day, you flip from these employees being an asset that is driving towards you becoming $1 billion company to an expense that is holding you back from meeting your bills. And so if you are a founder that's building something that's working, that's solving a problem, that has an early team, make sure you really understand your numbers and the cash that you'll be bringing in as a business, because just as you can raise capital and be in the way that the ecosystem highlights successful founders, all of that can crash. And that is actually what happened to On Deck. We went up to 300 people and we went right back down to 60 people in 2022. And that happened with tons of companies that raised Series A and Series B in 2021. So those would be my 3 takeaways.
For Jams. I feel like we can spend a whole hour in like numbers, unit economics, like, so I think this is probably the first of a series of events that we can do to really just be real and talk about what it takes to, build Black unicorns. But we're gonna open it up to the audience. If there's any questions, feel free to put up your hand and you can actually stand up and ask. And we can do that for the, I guess, however long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eileen, Edgar, you as well. You guys spoke about the importance of storytelling. I'm wondering how you guys became better storytellers yourselves.
We also get your name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you
Sorry.
do.
Yeah, what your name and what you do.
Absolutely. My name is Echo. I'm an optometrist in the city, but I want to be an entrepreneur. So that's why I'm here to meet you guys. Awesome.
Yeah. Sure. Honestly, it's scary almost every time I talk in public. Believe it or not, I'm nervous right now. Like it sounds crazy, but like you actually have to keep pushing yourself to just talk. In terms of storytelling, I harbored the skill more when I was pitching.
So if either your pitch, for me, it was pitching Be Blended. And I actually didn't know how to really succinctly say what I wanted to say in a short period of time that didn't have people, lose their attention span. And so one thing I did, and you can take this advice or not, is when I was preparing for pitches and I was on the university campus, I'd actually just walk into classrooms where people were working in, and there had 2 or 3 students, and I'd count down to 3, yo. Like I would actually be like 3, 2, 1, walk into, hi, my name's Eileen, and do you have like 3 minutes? I'm just gonna pitch this thing and love feedback after. I'd pitch, they'd be like, deer in headlights. And at the end, they gave me feedback and so on and so forth. But I got used to ripping off the Band-Aid and just talking in front of a crowd. In terms of speaking to, someone just normally, just think of it as just a conversation. You want to learn about them. You want to share about yourself. That's kind of how I started this storytelling route. But knowing your audience is also really important. So once you kind of understand how to articulate certain things and project and talk about what you want to talk about, now you have to see, okay, who am I talking to? Do they have 30 seconds? Do they have 30 minutes? What important thing do I want to say? So I would say just start off by just counting to 3 and talking to whoever you really want to talk to and take it from there. Edgar, you can.
That was great. I'm happy to add, definitely the practice piece is number one. Once again, going back to like Next Canada programs, you're pitching all day, every day. And so the pitch that you give at the beginning of the program ends up improving substantially by the end of the program, just due to the sheer amount of reps that you put in. At the same time, there are just like some fundamentals of storytelling. So if you're trying to raise venture capital, well, then being very clear on the problem that you're solving, your solution to that problem, the timing, the market size, your go-to-market strategy, your financials, like those are kind of the basics that you want to be able to cover. And then one thing that I did when I was in university is I would just do as many pitch competitions as were available. So there was one with Techstars Startup Weekend, Artificial Intelligence. I think we won the Montreal, Canadian, and international versions of that, but they run like startup weekends all across Canada, the US, etc. So that just allows you to put the reps in. Or if you're in clubs or have even opportunities like today where it's like, hey, what do you guys do? Well, then there's 3 people that are probably going to get an opportunity to speak. And one thing that I used to do and still do is if I'm ever at a conference and there's an opportunity for someone to ask a question, I force myself to go.
You were that
question. Always. And I have that same, what you described, like nervousness before I go up. Your heart starts beating, like it's the same for everyone. But you learn through the reps to treat that emotional response as excitement instead of fear, and you train yourself to think that that's what it is, and then that becomes what it is.
I know quickly just to add what I did is, I'll say I didn't talk about storytelling because like that is literally, as a nonprofit leader, my day-to-day job that I don't even think about it anymore. But what I did in the beginning is that I actually I would choose a group of friends each time I knew I wanted to change my pitch. So that way when I pitched a new group, they had never heard anything before. So I've got a lot of my friends have heard my pitches and like even sent them my grant application. Like as a nonprofit, I do a lot of like physical like storytelling on like physical paper. So I used to even send them my applications. And like that was really useful to always get like people who do not know but care about you, so they will take the time. So just to lean on your friends.
Also,
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
shameless plug for the pitch competition stuff. Yeah, we have anyone who is looking for some funding. We usually do this like periodically. We have a call open right now. We're sponsoring the Black Career Conference and giving out 20K in grants to early stage Black founders. So if you just go on LinkedIn and search Black Founders Network, the last post we did has the details of the pitch competition. So if you apply for that and get shortlisted for the final, there will be a pitch competition in front of a big group of people and you get a chance to practice, and then the winners get some grants. So that's an example. I saw a hand at the back. Yes.
Edgar kind of talked a little bit about it and about
Speak up a little bit, sorry. I can't hear you. Tell us who you are. Alison. Yeah.
in the end talking about growth startups. But I'm curious as to what measure that suggest a startup founder to consider to ensure that they don't fall into that trap of like profitability versus growth.
Yeah. And remind me your name and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Yvonne. I work in community partnerships and revolves in my day job, and I work on my startup called Melanin, which is a telemedicine provider for color and incorporates DEI principles to reduce the misdiagnosis rate that women face to get.
Perfect pitch. Cool. Metrics. That's my world. So I love to talk about that. Big thing for any startup, especially early stage companies, is setting what's called a North Star metric, which is a metric that that represents the core value that your product is providing and how your user experiences that value. So let's take a concrete example. We all use social media. So let's say Instagram, for example. Their North Star metric would be something like daily active users. And that's because the problem that you experience of wanting to connect with your friends, see what they're up to, that's something that you think about every single day. And so what you would do is tie the frequency of that metric, which in this case is daily, a core action that people are taking. So maybe that's they open up their feed and maybe they like one post. And then that would tie it to like an active user metric. For other businesses, you would want to tie that to also something that helps like generate revenue. Because typically like usage in this case is a leading indicator of someone that's actually going to pay for your product. So at a starting point for most startups, you just need one metric that everyone can drive towards. Usually that's a North Star metric. Once you get to a later stage, then you're going to work on something called unit economics, which is basically the amount of revenue that you're bringing in per customer divided by the cost that it takes to bring that customer in. And typically the best businesses have what's called a 3-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio, which is for every dollar that you invest in marketing spend, in salespeople going out to sell your product, you are earning $3 on that investment. So those would be some metrics to consider.
And
What's the anchor here?
can you tell them what the meaning of?
Oh yeah, so CAC is customer acquisition cost. So the amount of money it takes for you to acquire a customer on, let's say, like advertising platforms. The average cost, let's say for a Facebook ad, could be like $30, for example, all the way up to LinkedIn, which could be $100 or more. And usually that cost comes from the dynamics of the platform, the types of audiences that are on it. For example, LinkedIn is a lot of high-level decision makers, which is why it costs more. And those are some of the things to consider. LTV is lifetime value. So over the course of the period of time that someone is using your product or paying for your product, how much are they paying you in total? And that's usually based off of something called a like payback period. So the amount of time that they're actually using or paying for your, payback period is the amount of time it takes for you to make back your original investment. That's payback period. But yeah, those are some metrics to consider there.
Can I add on that real quick?
Please go.
Sorry, you were gonna get up.
Do your thing.
Okay. So with metrics, the earlier you can get someone to pay, the better. Also, I know her, Yvonne, I know her. But anyway, but the earlier you can get someone to pay, the better. And then two, don't, if it's a marketplace, sometimes it actually means just more people on both sides, and then you start monetizing. Third thing, slight tangent, don't believe the hype of like how many likes I got or how many people are talking about something, and you're like, you don't have a proper business model. Something that Reza Sachu, who's one of the professors from Next 36 or Next Canada, and he's at Harvard Business School now teaching. He's posting so much fun stuff, by the way, on LinkedIn. But he would always like drill us about like the vanity metrics and how yeah, you won this award and yeah, you're featured on this, but is your company making like money? Is it actually working? So don't feel like you need all these vanity metrics to prove the direction of your startup and your idea. Actually just buckle down with your customers and talk to them and see what metrics actually make sense for you as a business, but then to them as people who are using what you're building.
I'm so sorry that we have to cut it short, just because I know that there's hands up. We're just a little bit behind on time. Can we give these guys a round of applause? I have questions too that I want to ask that I'm dying to ask, but I guess it'll have to wait.
Can I say, I will also be like, please add us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Don't get back to you right away.
Yeah.
Can we share your emails, or is that something? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna be sending out emails to all of you. We have all your emails, so we're gonna send out emails. I'm gonna invite my colleague to come up and say a few words, but before I do, there's just two quick things that I'd like to say. The first thing is, and I should have said this earlier, is that Next is super proud to be partnering with the Black Wealth Club. This is a really important partnership for us. We really are trying to improve and encourage as many Black founders to apply to our programs. And we're really trying to listen to understand what we can be doing to support Black founders once they get into our program to be successful. This is something really important to us. When we talk about our mission, about improving and increasing Canadian prosperity, that involves everybody. Everybody needs to be involved in that. And so we're working really hard at doing this. And part of what we want to do is have more events like this where we can educate, connect, and support each other. So on that note, I just want to remind everyone that we would love all the entrepreneurs in the room. We would love for you to apply to our programs that are coming up. We have a deadline for our Next 36 program. It's December 2nd, which is this Friday. And we know that's a quick turnaround. So for anybody in this room, we want to give you an extension to the Monday, so you can have the weekend to think it over. So please do apply. We also have our Next AI program. So if you are building a technology that has AI, we want you to apply to this program. So that's my message to all the founders in the room. For all you operators in the room, service providers, we also want more Black mentors in our mentorship pool. Investors, please engage with us. We want Black investors investing in our Black founders and our programming. So please reach out to me. We want you to be involved in Next Canada. This is how we make Canada great. This is how we compete with the United States. This is how we get more unicorns. And so take me up on that. Connect with us, apply.
If you apply, let us know. We'll make sure that, you know.
Yeah.
For real.
So that's the piece around the extent. So we'll give you guys an extension to the Monday. So please do apply for the Next 36 program. Edgar, what else am I supposed to be saying right now?
You covered it, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Just thank you everyone for coming out. We really appreciate you coming together to help build this ecosystem to support Black entrepreneurs in Canada. So
Yeah.
shout out to you guys.
I'm Jules. I'm the creative and marketing manager at Next, and so it's gonna be weird. We're gonna stand. So I am gonna send out an email to everyone. I would love your feedback because I would love to have more events like this. Obviously, this is our first time. We weren't really sure how we could kind of move about this space, but it seems like we've made it work. But yeah, I'd love your feedback. Any of the questions that maybe we didn't get to, if you want to respond to that email tomorrow, that'll be the perfect opportunity. But I also wanted to thank you guys for this. So we just have some little gift bags, some swag for you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you. So that's all.
So that's wrap. So we have the space until 9. It's 8:30. If you have to go, totally understand. If you want to hang out, connect with the panelists. If you have questions for me or Jules about the program, if you want to connect with each other, we'll be heading back over to the kitchen where there's some food and drinks. And then I will have to, and then at 9 we have a hard stop, just so we'll want to let you know, but we have half an hour. So let's make some friends, let's hang out. And one more thank you to the panelists.
I'll leave at 9.
You were speaking.